It's always so odd when you've seen someone in so many movies and you meet him in real life. You're like, real person. You know? It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I do have that same thing myself. When I meet somebody that whose work I dig or whatever, I'm still just the same fan that I was, before I even got into the business. I met Daniel Day-Lewis in a Motel 8 in Conestoga, New York State. And a guy saw us and he said, do you mind if I take your photograph? So we went out into the car park of this Motel 8, and this guy took a photograph, and about, 7 or 8 months later, a copy of it arrived in my house in Australia, and the guy had basically just, written Russell Crowe, Australia, and sent it to me. So I have a copy of it, and it's a funny thing, it's like, I was there, it was the Boxing Hall of Fame. I was there with Angelo Dundee, and he was there with Barry McGuigan. Yeah. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was just unexpected, and it was a cool thing. He was such a nice fella too.
Daniel Day-Lewis is a real legend because he's one of those guys just like disappears for a couple of years and makes shoes.
Yeah.
Just a real artist.
That's quirky stuff, and then suddenly comes back with a vengeance and a fury.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
some of us have to work for a living, mate. He's probably got independent wealth.
Well, he's just a different kind of human. Any guy who can just walk away like that and just decide to make shoes, like that's the real deal.
Oh, it's pretty special.
Some people try to pretend to be quirky, they try to pretend to be eccentric, and then there's the real thing.
The actual eccentrics.
Yeah, the actual eccentrics are so fascinating to me. And yeah, for a guy like to meet a guy like that, he's one of those odd ones. But you are too. It's like it's always it's interesting to hear from a person that is a guy like you that still feels weird to meet people that are that you've admired their work. I always feel the same way, and I always feel like this is going to go away. And then I'm like, nope, Russell Crowe. Oh, wow. I met Dennis Quaid the other day. Same thing. It's like, it's Dennis Quaid.
Cool.
Just seems so strange.
Cool. Yeah. If I was to explain to my, childhood self, my 10-year-old self, what was in front of me and the people that I would meet and the things that I would experience and the contacts that have come along in my life, my little brain would have just exploded. There's just no way I could have possibly imagined that this life was going to unfold in front of me.
How could you? I mean, you'd have to be so ambitious. You'd have to have the most crazy expectations possible.
Yeah, and I would, my first thing when I was leaving school is that just don't have a boring life. Just don't, find some way of like being able to express yourself, My first job out of school, my first official job, was working for an insurance company, Commercial Union Insurance, inputting the details of policies.
Oof. So not off to a great start.
Oh, man. But it was a funny thing, though, because I learned, a lot in my short time there. In the summer before, I'd worked as a nightclub DJ. And I got fired because I couldn't talk. I was too nervous to talk on the microphone.
Wow.
So after like 5 or 6 weeks, they shuffled me off, and the guy really, dug what I was playing and how I got the dance floor moving and everything. But, he says, I need to sell toasted sandwiches, man. You have to tell people that the kitchen's open. So, I left school partway through the last year. In New Zealand, they have a different thing where you have a bursary year after normal high school finishes. And in your bursary year, if you achieve to a certain degree, you get money towards your university degree, But it was clear to me in that last year, my dad was out of work and I wasn't going to be able to go to university. We couldn't afford that sort of thing. It only would have cost, $3,500 or $4,000 or something like that back in the day. But that was beyond our means as a family. I started working at this insurance company, and I was the only person in the building of a big insurance company who had actually passed matriculation into university. you know, and the general manager of the company, you know, sat me down to tell me that one day, you know, you're the only person with, you know, the higher school certificate, what they call university entrance in New Zealand, in the building, you know. And I just watched this thing unfold. The coolest dude in the building was this salesman, right? And he had a beard and he wore kind of cool sunglasses and everything. And I remember the day he bought a new pair of shoes. And all the girls in the building, oh, have you seen whatever his name is, new shoes? And they were all fluttering over him and stuff like that. And this guy was the best salesman they had and blah, 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 you know. And in the time that I was there, I watched those new shoes get age on them and start cracking at the side and stuff like that, you know, because he obviously used them a lot, did a lot of walking around talking to people, you know. And just as I was leaving, I overheard a discussion where he was planning on getting some new shoes again. And I was like, yeah, I definitely don't want to.
Don't want to be that guy.
I don't want to be here. I don't want to be that guy, you know.
I had a similar situation when I was driving limousines. We were driving limos, and it was one of my jobs that I was doing when I was trying to make it as a stand-up comedian. And you would work long hours. Like, if you tried to leave after 8 hours, they'd yell at you. Right. Like, they wanted you to work 12, 16 hours a day. And there's this one guy, and he had a Cadillac. And the boss pulls us aside. He says, look at this guy over here. He's got a Cadillac. He makes $60,000 a year, and he doesn't have to bust his ass. You know, he's sitting down all day in a nice car and driving people around, and this could be you too. I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. That was my first thought, because I knew that guy was working 16-hour days. That's all he did. All he did was work. And, yeah, he had a nice car. I'm sure he had a nice house. Right. I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I got to get the fuck out of here. Sometimes people like that are good for you. They're like, the universe puts them in front of you just so you can say, this is a trap.
Yeah, well, here's your example.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So what do you want, option A or option B?
Did you ever meet anyone who was an actor? Did you know of anyone that had made a living doing that?
Well, all through my life, for sure, because my parents at a certain point in time were caterers on film sets.
Oh.
So that's how I got my first job.
Oh,
so
wow.
My mum's godfather was a TV producer who's famous in the Australian industry. Not so much anymore because the generations passed. But he was the tightest producer to work for, the cheapest bastard on the block, you know what I mean? And he was famous for that. And I mean, I still know Jack Thompson today. You know, I did a scene with Jack Thompson when I was 6 years old. Did my first line of dialogue on camera with him. Made a movie with him playing his son when I was 25 or 26, something like that.